How I Met Your Mother is my favorite show of all time. And you know that that's true because no one lies about How I Met Your Mother being their favorite show. You know? But yes, How I Met Your Mother was a cultural phenomenon while it was on the air, with an average of 6.41 million viewers per episode. Impressive, right? Also, a lie. 6.41 million does not reflect their average viewership, but rather their worst performing episode across 9 seasons. Though, in fairness, it does have a legacy similar to Game of Thrones due to a controversial ending that many, if not most fans considered lackluster. Nevertheless, in April of 2021, a spin-off of the series was announced to be in production, titled How I Met Your Father. And we eventually got a trailer where the only familiar faces for me were Hilary Duff and Josh Peck. Promising start. But the first 2 episodes of the series finally came out on Tuesday, so let me answer the question that every single one of you watching has had since then, which is, what did Jimmy think? Yes, including those of you that have no idea who I am, you were asking, you just didn't know it. But after watching the first 2 episodes twice each, I am here to tell you with absolute certainty, with 100% accuracy, with God himself as my witness, I can tell you that these first 2 episodes, they were fine. No, I'm obviously going to talk about the pilot and a bit about the second episode. Okay, let's get right to it.
Because I want to tell you the story of how I met your father.
I already know how you met Dad.
You know the basics.
So, right off the bat, we have a twist on the original series. While this spin-off is of course built on the same premise as the original series, we can already see that the execution of the premise is different. While our protagonist, Sophie, is still sitting down to tell their child how they met their spouse, our future child is hidden from view, with the camera instead focusing on our protagonist telling the story. See, from a production standpoint, the original series very quickly ran into a big problem. You see, children kind of age quickly. Yeah, no, I know, I was surprised too. So after the first season, shots of the children had to be reused because the 2 actors playing the kids looked entirely different by the end of the series. Yeah, to say the least, watching those kids go through puberty on the couch would slightly clash with the idea of this story being told in 1 or 2 sittings, you know? But after our setup, we have Hilary Duff meeting 2 of the other protagonists, Sid and Jesse, for the first time. And other than a terrible, cringy, just lame attempt to make Sophie come off as quirky.
Because my phone's belly is hungry. She's all, feed me, mama!
The scene flows really well, and the 3 characters have a lot of chemistry, at least in my opinion. Jesse is a cynical guy, to say the least, with a dry sense of humor that, in my opinion, really works. He definitely feels more grounded next to the other eccentric characters, but I think that's the point, and again, to me, he works because the acting and writing go very well together. Sid, on the other hand, is an optimist preparing to propose to his longtime girlfriend, and is Jesse, our main male protagonist's best friend. Sound familiar? Though I will say, Sid's actor does a great job in both of these episodes. He's clearly very comfortable playing the character and is very charming in my opinion. But back to our protagonist. It turns out that Sophie is heading on a first Tinder date with someone she thinks may be the one. Yeah, if it wasn't obvious enough, Sophie is really similar to Ted so far. Sophie arrives for her first date with Ian, one of our minor recurring characters. And it turns out they are just absolutely perfect for each other. Aww. Oh, but he's moving across the planet to Australia for work. Nar! Was that offensive? I don't really have a lot of Australian viewers. It's fine, I don't have any Australian viewers. But the date plays out, and honestly, I kind of expected this to be a fake out. I thought she was going to fall victim to a Barney-like character who lies in order to sleep with her, but no. Ian is a completely genuine guy who we'll see more of later, and I'll get to that. But their date is quick and painless, and really only exists to set up some level of conflict for later. Nothing too interesting here, let's move along. Sophie goes home where we meet her roommate Valentina, and Valentina's new hookup, Charlie. And based on the first 2 episodes, these two are the absolute definition of white bread. See, Valentina is Sophie's promiscuous BFF. And that's it. That's the whole character. And for the record, I use the word promiscuous not to judge her, but like, there's literally a whole exchange she leads about
crushing dick.
Crushing dick.
Crushing dick.
Yeah, even my girlfriend found the repeated use of that phrase just weird and forced, but whatever. We're also introduced to Charlie, a rich guy who was cut off from his trust fund because he's dating Valentina. Yeah, their relationship is that serious, yet he's never met Sophie, Valentina's roommate and best friend. Yeah, honestly, so far these two are just not likable characters, and as a whole, the humor is just not doing it for me.
I can see your penis again.
Stay in there, lad. There my undies are. Oh, that's right. Completely forgot we started out here with all the fruit play.
Oh, and also, it turns out Valentina decided that Charlie is moving into their apartment. Yeah, we're supposed to like this character, yet the first thing she does is one of the worst things any roommate could ever do, ever. Whatever. But our little trio goes to the bar owned by my man Sid because Sophie accidentally took his phone. Yeah, sure. At the bar, we then meet our 6th and final main character, Ellen. And, oh my god, dude, I don't think I have ever seen a bigger difference in quality between a character's writing and acting. I'm sorry, but the writing for Ellen is terrible. I understand pilots usually feel a little forced, but her first 2 lines are a literal checklist of her deal. Seriously, check it out.
I just moved here from Iowa. Oh, and I'm Jesse's sister. Adopted, obviously. I'm getting divorced. Little Crescent, Iowa has 600 people in it, and she was the only other lesbian. We both knew it had run its course. So I moved to New York to start over, reconnect with my brother.
So, let's review. She's Jesse's sister. She's adopted. She's gay. She's from a small town in Iowa. She's recently divorced. And she just moved here so she can be closer with her brother. 2 lines. 2 lines. And I already know more about Ellen than some of my closest friends. But don't get me wrong. The actress is really charming despite the bad writing. And to give credit, she is acting as representation for a lot. I mean, if her writing gets better, that would leave us with a strong character who represents women, gay people, adopted people, biracial families, and divorcees. I know I'm a straight white dude, so my opinions on representation should be taken with a bucket of salt, but I know good writing, and that was not it. I just don't know if there's a way to handle the character better, you know? If only we had proof that diverse characters written to represent multiple groups of people at once could be likable, iconic, and well-rounded characters without having cringy dialogue every time they talk about their background, especially when they talk about their unique experiences that a straight white man like me wouldn't quite get. I mean, to be fair, it's not like any characters from How I Met Your Mother would fit that description, you know? Maybe someday. It also turns out that Jesse went viral for his proposal fail to his ex-girlfriend. I mean, I'm gonna sound mean, but I mean, that's kind of what you get. Don't do public proposals, they're a bad idea. But now it's time for Sid's proposal. Okay, yeah, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Don't do public... Oh, okay, she said yes, great! There was also a pretty funny joke here from Sid's fiancée, Hannah, which was set up by the fact that Sid's cover to get Hannah out tonight was the fact that they were going to see Beyonce.
Oh, I can't believe I'm getting engaged and seeing Beyonce!
Oh.
I can't believe I'm getting engaged!
Really good subversion of expectations and a good way to make a minor character endearing. If only Ellen received the same treatment, but it's fine, I'll get over it. After the proposal, Charlie complains to Valentina that he dislikes the dirtier parts of New York, such as the subway and public bathrooms. For some reason, Valentina takes this really personally and calls him a
prissy royal bitch.
Oh great, so they're gonna break up and get back together every episode, huh? Nah, no way, I'm definitely wrong. It's not like that happens in literally the next episode. Also, not for nothing, but who takes someone not liking New York that personally? Jesus, dude, say what you will about the character, but Lily's New York pride was a lot better. Also, Sophie's gonna walk across the Brooklyn Bridge for the first time when she meets her soulmate. Cool. Now we're heading to the airport with 7 characters. Even though they're all going in this car. Whatever. Sophie goes to Professor Love to Ian, asking him to do long distance, which results in him turning her down, saying,
But maybe someday.
In response to this, Sophie decides to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge for the first time with our 5 other main characters. I'll get back to that in a sec, because there's kind of an interesting thing there. First, we gotta talk about... Great, Valentina and Charlie. Oh wow, they make up after breaking up. Who could have guessed that? Good thing they don't do that in the very next episode. We also have this gem of a line.
This city is magic. And so am I.
Honestly, the best acting I've seen from Charlie all day was just him not bursting out laughing at that horrible line. That's like something Jake Paul would say, you know? You don't want one of your main protagonists to sound like Jake Paul, right? We also find out that despite Jesse's assumptions, Sophie has an absent father and a mother who has never settled down and instead jumps from partner to partner. This definitely works at endearing us to Sophie as more than just a simple hopeless romantic. And we start nearing the end of the episode, but wait. This is a spin-off, meaning we need some kind of connection to the previous show, right? And to my surprise, they actually handled this perfectly. It turns out our 2 best friends live in the apartment previously occupied by our 2 best friends. You know, when this series was announced, I couldn't help but wonder why we were going to witness this story out of all of the stories in New York that take place in this universe for this spin-off. And honestly, the idea that the stories are going to revolve around the same apartment as our previous characters was the perfect decision in my opinion. So if we were to get a 3rd spin-off in another 20 years, we now know that this franchise is tied together by this apartment. And I like this a lot more than seeing returning cast members just for the sake of it, which I'll get to. I know I'm saying that a lot, but this is a very structured video. I'll get to it, I promise. But then we're given a bit of a cliffhanger, if you will.
That's the night I met your father.
So, unlike How I Met Your Mother, we are told straight away that Sophie ends up with one of the 4 male characters introduced in this episode. I wasn't crazy about this at first, but after thinking about it, I do think this has the potential to be a brilliant idea. Because now, if this show takes off, you're going to see like charts on Reddit that organize each and every hint at the identity of the father. It's a refreshing take on the method of leaving clues from How I Met Your Mother. But as of right now, my guess is currently Jesse. He's just the one that Sophie has by far the most chemistry with, and that's probably something they specifically checked for when casting. But as of right now, we currently have our first clue, which is that Sophie wanted to walk the Brooklyn Bridge with her soulmate. If we assume that this show is going to be as poetic as How I Met Your Mother, that means she probably walked the bridge without realizing she was with her soulmate. Though I've also seen enough sitcoms to make one guaranteed prediction: Sophie and Jesse are definitely going to date at some point, but just as Jesse's about to ask out Sophie, Ian comes back and enters a relationship with Sophie. Almost guarantee it. But let's get back to the whole cliffhanger. If they're able to make the identity of the father more ambiguous, it could work really well. The one and only thing I don't want is for them to heavily imply it's one of the characters just to change it at the last minute to subvert expectations. That's something a lot of people hated about the original series, and the one other time I saw a story try to do it, I absolutely hated it too. But there we have our pilot, and in terms of quality, yeah, I could really see this show just going either way. You see, I think the pilot was okay. A little above average at best. I rewatched the How I Met Your Mother pilot in preparation for this video, and yeah, I'm sorry, but it's just so much better. Nostalgia aside, it's just a much more focused episode. The A plot is focused on Ted meeting and falling for Robin. The B plot is focused on our main couple, Marshall and Lily, getting engaged. Every other relationship is established through character interactions that relate to those two stories. Barney barely even does anything from a plot perspective, but his interactions with Lily, Marshall, and Ted give us everything we need to know about him. The individual relationships are left until mostly later to explore. Whereas here, we have Sophie and Valentina as besties. They meet Charlie for the first time, and over here you have Jesse and Sid, the two best friends, and oh yeah, they're getting to know Ellen because she just moved to New York, so yeah. There are 4 different paths, 4 different worlds, just colliding at once for the sake of a pilot, and there's just way too many things happening here. Oh, and that doesn't even include Sophie meeting Ian, Sid getting engaged to Hannah, and Jesse's ex somewhere out there for a future appearance. That is a lot to cover in a pilot, and it shows in how all over the place it was, at least for me. But there is a second episode out, so let's quickly get my thoughts on it out of the way. I didn't like it. The idea was to go to the club and have the 6 main characters bond. It was really forced, really awkward, and the writing was even less funny than the previous episode. But at least it was an original premise. Not like How I Met Your Mother had 4 separate episodes focused on clubbing. But let's give credit where credit is due. When the 6 main characters were just put in a room together and interacting without any hijinks, it was a lot better. Even Charlie towards the end seemed to have some promise, with him having some decent bonding with Sid. And this scene showed, at least to me, that these 6 do have potential and they do have heart, but the writing so far just isn't there for me. The jokes aren't punchy enough, and they really need to figure out what they're doing with Charlie, Ellen, and Valentina. Because right now, it really doesn't feel like they have enough of a grasp on who those characters are beyond, like, their elevator pitches. But the pilot was much better than I expected, and hopefully after receiving the feedback for the first season, they were able to make a better season 2, because I do think they have a promising cast and an interesting premise. But now, the last thing I want to discuss, the potential connections that this show can have to How I Met Your Mother. A lot of people are already talking about who could make a cameo from the previous series, especially since Marshall and Lily were indirectly named in the pilot as the ones who sublet Sid and Jesse their apartment. To be honest though, I just don't want any of the main 5 to appear. The show takes place in 2022, and I just don't see any point. Barney's story wrapped up 2 years ago in the timeline, the same year that Marshall became a state Supreme Court justice. Lily's story wrapped up at the end of season 9, and Ted and Robin's story wraps up in 2030. I just don't see a point other than to go, "Oh, I know them!" So, with all of this in mind, there are really only 2 ways to incorporate the previous cast off the top of my head that I wouldn't entirely hate. 1. Robin, Marshall, and, to an extent, Ted are all celebrities or public figures by the end of the series. If there was a clip of Kobe Smulders doing a newscast here or there, that would actually make sense in universe, as she's the hotshot reporter by the end of the series. If she was interviewing Marshall or Ted, you know, that would be fine. Like, maybe that interview can serve as a tool of motivation for a protagonist down in their feelings, you know? And I'm not necessarily saying I want them to do this, but it's a lot better than just having them conveniently bump into every main or recurring character from the original show. And I'm not saying I necessarily want them to do that, but it's a lot better than just having them conveniently bump into every main or recurring character from the original show. But to be fair, there is one member of the original gang I would love to see come back in a speaking role. But Jimmy, you said none of the 5. Yeah, because I want the 6th member. I do think Tracy would make the most sense to bring back for an appearance. Her introduction to the original series was literally her helping out each of the 5 members of the main cast. So her coming back and providing some wisdom to Sophie or Jesse, maybe encouraging them to go for it with the other, that wouldn't be terrible. I'm not saying it's necessary, but it would work. It would be entirely in character, and it would give us more time with a character we clearly didn't get enough of. But in the original ending, Tracy does die in 2024, so if they wanted to maintain the whole your ending is your ending thing, they have until season 3 to do it. So far, How I Met Your Father is, like I said, fine. The cast is promising, but the writing just needs improvement. But I will be watching the rest of the season to see if maybe it picks up in quality. And I will give credit where it's due to Hilary Duff. I had really low expectations for Hilary Duff as a protagonist, but it seems like sitcoms are where she's a lot more comfortable and where she gets to shine a little more, even though she's still a hair stiff right now, at least in my opinion. This show is clearly suffering from growing pains, but I hope that ultimately results in it coming into its own and forming its own identity. And if not, well, videos tend to do better when I'm making fun of things as opposed to praising them, so it's a win-win for me, isn't it? Bye! Hey, thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It actually really helps me out a lot. I make comedic commentary videos, critiques, and video essays every Friday. And if you're not convinced yet, you can check out a recommendation above. Alright, well, thanks again. Bye!